Davida.
We're the two Pilates Chicks. That was our theme music for 2024, our first episode.
The new year.
Woo! Season 5, episode 1.
Yes.
We got 17 episodes in 2023, and we're at 1.
Yes, back to 1.
Back to 1. So happy New Year. Thanks for joining us in this 2024.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is weird, considering we're not really there yet.
We're recording this just before.
In December, yeah. So this episode is on difficult conversations with clients. So if you listen to our year end for 2023, we got a lot of questions that all kind of fell into this category.
Yeah, they actually connected very strangely well.
They just threaded. It was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They all were like, we should just put this in that episode.
Yeah, because we'd already picked this topic for our first episode of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the questions we got for the year end just really
fell
connected.
into it.
Yeah. It was perfect.
Thank you. You gave us our outline.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It was perfect. Yeah, so there's a lot of the more you teach in these difficult conversations. And I'm not one for confrontation.
Yeah.
So these are always hard
It's
things.
always hard. And there's
you learn.
Yeah, and you learn with experience. And there's everything from we'll go through clients late canceling a lot, clients texting you too much or at obnoxious hours, or clients being combative and not
wanting to do the
them.
exercises you want them to do.
Yeah. And there's so many things, and people go through all of them, and they're so common.
They really are, which you can see by the questions that we got, that we both were like, oh, yeah, yeah. We hear that, yeah. And we still deal with this.
Some of these things we're dealing with right now.
You're dealing with some of them right now.
Yeah. And I'm helping somebody else deal with hers of the same one with her clients right now, too. And so we all have these different experiences.
Do you want to, so I don't know how you want to hit this. Do you want to go with the...
Well, I think the easiest one is discussing the business hours.
Yeah.
Because that's a basic boundary issue. It's something that I've dealt with as well. I think everybody has. Where...
how do you handle that client that texts you at night?
Yeah, 10 p.m.
On the weekend, if you're not working?
Yeah. Just times where it's obviously not an appropriate business relationship text, where essentially it's up to us, right?
We have to set that boundary.
We have to set the boundary. And so, for example, for myself, what I've decided to do is I will not answer a text after 8 p.m. Or email. I just will not send messages to clients after that time. Now, I could also pick an earlier time.
That's true, yeah.
And it just kind of depends. And I think we just have to pick our own business hours and stick to it.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, if you had a 9-to-5 job, although it does blur there too for people, I hear.
It does, yeah, especially these days.
These days. But I also started a thing because I realized if I woke up first thing in the morning and then started answering texts and emails, my morning was ruined.
Yes.
And I like to have my routine in the morning of coffee and a walk. So I've made it not only the boundary of the evening hour, but I won't answer or look at it until 8 a.m.
100%. Yep.
So I'm when I'm heading out to do my day, that's when I'll look. And then if something's an emergency, I need to respond right away, I will. Otherwise, I'll wait till I get into the space.
And that's a really, really good decision, because we have to be in a good headspace for ourselves.
We do. We have to be relaxed. We have to be clear. We have to be focused and centered and grounded. And if I wake up and immediately am bombarded with, can I move my time? And or I can't. It just sets me off into chaos.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's too much.
And then we can't be there for the clients that are coming in that day, and then we feel stressed. And So I think it is really important, just as a basic practice, pick your office hours. If it's 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever it is that works for you. And just do not respond to messages past those boundaried times. And clients will get it.
I mean, it's not the thing is haven't you ever had where they text you at this off hour before you set your boundaries and you'd answer and then you'd hear nothing back?
Yeah.
So they're not sitting by their phone waiting for you to they're not sitting there going, why is she not answering?
Yeah. And if they are, well
Get a life.
Too bad.
No, kidding.
Well, that's one of the boundaries. If they are like, I don't need to message you, that's my own boundary.
I mean, I think sometimes clients don't. I mean, it's not that they're being selfish, but I think a lot of times it's like we have this like life outside of the studio, but to them
we are the studio.
We are in the studio.
Yeah.
So I think it's sometimes they don't. But, you know, if you're like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I was blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't even give an excuse anymore. Like, oh, sorry, I didn't see this. Like, I'll just answer their text when it's appropriate for me to get to it.
Yeah.
And I think just setting that boundary is very important because they will then respect it more. And even if they don't, well, it doesn't matter. They're not getting a response when it's my time.
Right. And it's the same thing when you're teaching, right? Like when I'm teaching and I have back to back to back to back.
Yep.
I'm not going to run over and take time when I need to prepare for the next client.
Very true. Yeah.
To sit there and go through on my time where I have time to chill and run to the bathroom, whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, now I can answer you before I shut it all down.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also a good boundary discussion, the time between sessions. If somebody comes late, I'm not going over their time for them into the next.
Or the ones that show up early.
Yeah.
And then want you to start early, but you're cleaning and you need that time to like
reset.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And that's one thing, like speaking of difficult conversations, I had a client who was doing that constantly.
That's why I thought of it because you had told me that story.
And this is somebody who also bleeds into another issue of canceling a lot and keeping the spot. But so this person, when she had one certain time, it was right after my half-hour break I give myself after teaching, like from 7 a.m. through to lunchtime. I'm like, I need that half hour to eat and breathe and reset. And she would be the next person right after my break. And she would start coming in because my studio's attached next to a gym. She would go into the gym and then kind of peek in. Oh, well, you're not doing anything. So can we start early? You're like, no, you need, give me like 10 more minutes. And it's like, that's when your session starts.
Yeah, no.
And it's hard to find the right way to say that. And I'm like you, like it's hard for me to be that confrontational in that sort of an environment. But you gotta find the way to say it. You gotta
find the way to say it. And I think it gets easier as you have to, because these are like things that you run into. It's not one time only in your life of teaching.
Yeah. It's over and over.
It's over and over and over. So you start to learn, okay. And you can see it coming a lot of times with, you know, the oh, this is where we're going, so I need to nip it in the bud now. Yeah.
And that comes with experience. But even still, like, I deal with that still.
Yeah. Well, I have where, and the other thing is, like, when you're setting off the kind of the boundaries in terms of the off-hour, you know, blah, 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 texting, email, phone calls, whatever, it's like, those are the ones also that usually you're going to have to deal with in terms of late cancel. They're wanting to change something around. Yeah. It's not something that it's like, because to me, those are the ones, it's like, that's the emergency time. It's like, I need to do, so sorry, da-da-da-da-da. And so that's getting into that whole, how do you handle
those bad habits.
And those kind of, the ones that cancel like
25 hours.
or 24:30. So it's like, right. And this happened to one of my students. She's like, they canceled technically under 24 hours, but by the time the texting had gone back, it was like, because it was so like, and at that point she's like, what do I do? Do I charge her? Yeah. And it's like, and this was my thing with that is like, is it something that happens a lot? Do they change their time a lot? Do they cancel a lot? And she's like, yes. And I said, then yes.
Then yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm pretty strict with my policies.
I'm very strict.
I try to stay very, very strict to them because it's only fair. But also it tries to kind of knit bad habits with the clients. But also the more you let somebody do that, you know,
the more they're going to do it. Yeah, and I think also when it comes to those kind of, you also learn with your clients. There are those. So I tell my clients, the first time they do it, because I don't really know them, right? Like they do it and you just start teaching them or whatever, so that the habit doesn't, you say, well, this time, I'm not going to charge you. I do have the 24-hour, but I give a freebie every year for emergencies.
Yeah.
And then that just reinforces, hey, I have this policy.
Yeah.
But I'm doing you a favor. Mm-hmm. Just know that you've used your one for the year. Yeah. But then those clients that never, ever do that. And then when they do it, totally it's an emergency. You know it's like, I'm not going to charge you. Yeah.
That's an actual needed time that they have to get to do something that, never happens. Yeah. And that's a different situation. Yeah. So it really depends person to person.
Exactly. And you've got to kind of make that decision for yourself because they're your boundaries. It's your time. So what are you willing to put up with?
Yeah. What's okay?
What's okay for you?
Yeah.
Because for me and you too, we have clients that want in, and we could have given that slot. It's not about it is about your time and your money. But the thing is, you could have had someone in that slot that wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And now it's too late for you to get them in because they're like, well.
Well, and so for that reason, I know a number of Pilates studios and PT clinics who are starting to increase their window of cancellation policy.
Like 48 hours or 36 hours.
Yeah. And so I've started to do that where I'll remind people like, hey, I have a quote-unquote 48-hour cancellation policy, but I'm not necessarily being as strict in charging in the full 48 hours, but it's trying to give the clients, it's trying to initiate an idea for my clients that you need to plan.
Yeah, you need to
give me more time. Book. Yeah. You need to let me know.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, see, here we go. New year, lost my thought. First time. But I started because of that conversation we had with the 36-48. I used to check in with my clients as in the morning before their day. So it was over 24 hours, but
when they had their session, the next day.
The next day. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? That's not working. So I went to Sunday. So Sunday in the morning before I go on bike ride, whatever we do, whatever I'm going to do, I will just go, hey, I have you for Tuesday at your normal time, blah, blah, blah. Just a reminder. And then they will come back and say, oh, I was going to text you. Can I change it? Yeah. So everything is so then I feel like, hey, you confirmed.
Yeah.
And now you're texting me right under 24.
Yeah.
Guess what?
It's pretty frustrating. And I know some people feel, I do too, a little disrespected by it.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of clients, it's not intentionally being disrespectful. A lot of people, most people who are not in our field or an appointment-based one-on-one kind of field, like therapists and doctors.
It's not a thought process.
They don't understand it, you know?
No.
So it's not just the money thing like you're saying, but that is a part of it. But it's also, being respectful of our time and, that we do have other people to accommodate. And so I've been thinking, for the last few years, I've been trying to do year-end email, happy holidays, starting in the new year, just a reminder, these are the policies.
That's what I do. Yeah.
And it's helpful because you're restating, reinforcing, the cancellation policy, the, no late cancels. And I know some people who are being very strict. They say, you get 3 late cancels, and after you do 3 late cancels for the year, you're forfeiting your time.
That's
so it depends.
I mean, I get it though, because if you have
if you have a wait list,
So
it depends on the teacher, and it depends how strict you want to be, and it depends how you want to enforce these boundaries for your business. And how to enforce those conversations.
Yeah, and I also think if you're doing the boundaries that suit for you, then those clients do respect you more because you're this is the way I run my business, and they're like, okay,
yeah, and I think it's a good way to think of it. this is our business.
It's a business. Yeah.
We're not just a person hanging out in the studio with someone for a while. It's like, this is our business. We are running a business. And whether or not you have your own studio or work for somebody or like rent from somebody, it is your business.
Yeah. It's your time.
Mm-hmm. And so similarly, like when people, another difficult conversation, if somebody comes in and is asking about prices and then they want to know what kind of deal they can make or oh, well, over there it's only $90. Why is yours one?
If I come twice a week, then can I have a discount because of this? I had a new client. She stayed because I set that boundary right off the bat because I could see where she was going. She's like, what are your prices? And I told her, and she's like, well, I'm going to come a lot, so can you give me a discount? And I said, no, this is my, and she really tried. She really did. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. This is my price. But then, I give in December where if they buy their package, even if they don't need a package, I give them a free session.
Yeah, and that's a nice gift for recurring clients.
Yeah, because she was a new client. I don't give discounts for new clients. I feel that reward goes to those that have been coming to you.
I agree. Yeah.
That those are the ones that are showing up and coming here, and those are the ones that should get some sort of reward for that.
Yeah. I'm definitely on board for that.
No new client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because then I feel like if you start, and again, this is a business choice, but if you start a discount with a new client, they're starting at a lower rate, and then when they start returning, it's like, well, why do I have to pay more now?
Yeah.
So you're kind of discounting your work at first.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise, if you're giving a free session or not a free session, never call it a free session. If you're giving it a gift session.
It's like, it's a year-end thank you.
Yeah.
Here's your year-end thank you. Buy a package this month and you get a free session.
Yeah. And it's an extra little thing. And that's
extra little gift for you.
And that's a thank you to those clients. Yeah. For respecting our time, for returning to sessions.
For being here all year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or years, whatever it is.
But that is a hard conversation when someone wants to discount your cost because it feels very personal. Because it feels like you're kind of discounting.
And I feel like it goes into that whole, the boundaries and confidence of us as teachers to realize, no, we're worth this. This is, we've been through this many hours of training. We've done this much education that never stops. And so, they're paying for that expertise of whatever it is in a class. Because even in classes, they'll want a deal.
Like a group class, you mean?
They'll still want, and it's like, another thing is like, what if you're in business for yourself and you are paying for your utilities, you're paying for your whatever.
It's expensive. And I had somebody walk in and say, oh, well, how much do you charge? Oh, well, I pay this much over there. And I smiled at her. I said, well, then you can go there.
Yes. I love that story.
And I wasn't being mean. I was just like, I literally have nothing to say.
I have no answer for you.
You're welcome to go over there. She said, oh, but I want to come over here. I said,
these are my prices.
Yeah. And I was just very kind and straightforward. That is what it is.
Yeah. And I've had people, because I keep my door open, and you probably have it. That was a situation the same way, where they're like, oh, yeah, I've been doing Pilates, blah, blah, blah. How much do you charge? Oh, well, that's too much.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Sorry. Okay, well, I can recommend other studios.
Yeah. But, I mean, the thing is, it's like, as you move through your journey, it's like you've got to be confident in what you charge, how you set those boundaries.
Yeah. What your hours are. And those are difficult things to, like, step up and, like, hold your ground. Yeah.
For some.
Definitely, yeah. And it can work out, well, it will always work out in the right way. Yeah. But it can take some time sometimes to figure it out. And similarly, like, one of the price stories, like, during the pandemic, right, when I switched to virtual, and I had a client who worked with me in the studio, and then we were switching to virtual, and she wanted it to be cheaper. And I said, no, this is my price, and it's still an hour of time. And she was trying to argue about a duet session with her daughter. Maybe it should be this price, not that. And I said, well, if you feel like you get more out of a private, you're welcome to each schedule separate privates. which would then entail being more in the long run.
Exactly.
But it ended up being that, and I was very nervous about this conversation, feeling kind of like sick about it. But I was like, no, I know that this is what it should be. And she ended up just taking sessions all through the pandemic. Yep. And paying that price.
Because it's basically still the same time teaching. Yep. You're not like
same expertise. Yeah, same amount of time. Yeah.
And then that kind of leads into the next question in a way. Mm-hmm. That client, this kind of came up, and we all have it. I have one now, one. And that client that doesn't want to do, that maybe they dictate what they want in their workout, or they dictate what they want to do in terms of exercises, or no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And kind of like fighting you on that whole, like, you're obviously guiding and teaching this client and what they need for their body, and they're going, no.
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Yeah. Or I do that exercise this way.
Yeah.
And I
do it this way. Yeah.
This is how I do it.
This is how I do it.
And we've touched on this a bit in a previous episode.
I feel like it was the one on the personalities of clients.
I think so. That line of episodes. But I mean, and it is
series. It was a series.
It was a series. Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
A series.
That series.
I know. I had to think about it too.
But yeah, if you have that difficult client and they're trying to dictate their workout, I think for one, in some ways, depending on the reasoning that they're saying no to something, sometimes we can go along with it and not give them certain things if it's a reasonable reason.
A reasonable reason.
If something doesn't work for their body, of course, if there's an injury, some sort of contraindication. But if they're just being
difficult,
kind of,
and you would know that, being a jerk,
thinking they know more.
They have those clients, yes.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes, honestly, I just say, okay, whatever. And I just won't give that to them, but I'll sneak that movement in a different way.
Yeah.
If I think that it is a valuable movement for them, if they do need it.
If they need it, yeah. And I feel like a lot of times, since there's, like you said, finding out kind of why they're saying no is key.
Yeah.
Like, is it because they're scared?
Yeah.
Is it because there's pain?
Yep.
Is it because they're just being difficult and just like, because I know for me, like when my teacher says, oh, we're going into high fun, I'm like, ew, in my head. But I do it, but she knows I don't like it.
Yeah.
But she knows I need it because we're working on stuff. Yep. So understanding that and then going with that client, okay, I understand they're scared of this, or I understand there's a fear of pain of this, or I understand they're unsure, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I had one client that we were doing something, and she was like, I don't like how that, and she was just like fighting this exercise. And I was just like, okay, do what you want. And I was like, I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
And what's funny is over time, as I've kind of backed off when she's like been like that, is all of a sudden she's turned around.
Oh.
So now she's not as combative.
Interesting.
And she's starting to trust. But I would push to a certain point, and I'd be like, okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
She's not going to hurt herself.
Yeah.
So
and that's a different issue.
Yeah. But finding out, or like when your client does have a pain, and you're like, well, I want to maybe see where they are, and you say, well, how about this today?
Yeah.
And they go, I don't know, or maybe not. Mm-hmm. Then you're kind of going through that.
Then there's reasoning there, and you can work with them as to why they don't want to do that, and that's more of a, I don't want to say valid reason, but that's more of a like reasonable reason.
Yeah, it's more of a like you just got to figure out why they're doing that.
Yeah.
Why are they trying to dictate their workout?
Yeah, and on the other side of when things, not that clients are saying, no, I won't do these exercises, but when a client decides that they only want to do certain exercises, they say, I want to do this.
do these.
I want to do this one and this one. And sometimes it's because they enjoy it. Like, I know a lot of people really like feet in the straps on the reformer.
Yes.
And so I use that sometimes as like a reward, you know. It's like, okay, we're gonna do these ones that I know that they don't like, and then okay, now let's do some feet in the straps. Now. Yeah,
that's funny.
But some people can be more annoying about it and say, well, I want to do this, this, and this.
Yes. And I think it's, again, having that conversation in terms of you just kind of asking some certain questions to kind of go there.
Yeah. Why do you want to, like, finding out, why they want to do those things. Maybe it's what they're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've actually had, and I think you've done it too, I've done it in mine, where especially when you're teaching and there's an order of things, and so people kind of know what's coming in the order, and you may not be going for that exercise today. You might be skipping, and they start setting up.
Yeah.
Or we walk to the Cadillac, and they, like, get in a position where you're like, oh, they want to do this exercise. Yeah. And I'm just kind of like, okay. And I go with it because it's like, I feel like their body is saying, I need to do this.
Yeah. It's just like an unconscious
I need to do this.
flow.
You need to make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those, and they're not really dictating, but they are kind of saying, I want to do this. But there seems to be, for me, it's kind of like, oh, their body's telling them something.
Yeah. And I'll do the same thing in certain situations. If a client, like, based on what cues you gave them, they end up doing a different thing. Yeah. And then, but sometimes that's okay, and I'll be watching, I'm like, yeah, we'll do that first. Like, we'll do what I was thinking after.
Yeah. I had a client that we were working on something, and we started to walk over to the window chairs, and she's like, oh, we're doing scissoring, which she calls going up front, like the front lunges.
For the leg scissor.
We're learning how to, like, that connection, and it was not what I was going for, and I'm like, sure, yeah. And then she was like, oh. And then she, like, so that's what we were. I was like, okay.
Like, yeah, that does sound good.
That sounds good. Because we've been working on it, and it's something she needs. But it was so funny how she'd say, oh, and she got all excited. And I was like, oh, wasn't my plan, but okay.
But it works. And I think that taps into our whole main point of teach the body in front of you. Because maybe we're not thinking something, but their body is thinking that. And maybe it works, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I feel like it's kind of like, you know, when you do that, like when you're tight and you do that stretch, you're like, oh, that feels good. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Employees are like, oh, I want to move in this way.
Yeah.
I need to move in this way.
Yeah.
And we need to, like, because we're just guiding them. We're
guiding them.
Not dictating.
Yeah. But then I think the final question in this whole thing of, like,
it's a
how to break up with a client. So these clients that are these things that we've been talking about.
And they're all in the series.
Yeah, they are in each individual episodes from season 4. And so the idea of, like, so if you're going through these difficult conversations with a client for one or all of these different issues, and they're not getting better about it, and they're not listening to you, and they're not following up.
Where you're dreading it.
Yeah. And you just can't
handle it anymore.
Deal with it. So that question of, like, how do you break up with a client? How do you take their time away from them? Ideally, if somebody's being a challenge and they're not a recurring time, like they don't have a set time, it's much easier to just kind of stop offering times or stop accommodating their times. But for those clients who have a recurring spot,
every week,
how do you go about that?
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's something that we currently are dealing with in different ways. We've dealt with it many times.
Yep. And it's a difficult, like how I've had it done in terms of email, where I've emailed the client because talking face-to-face would not have gone well.
Right.
And this was a client that I had at the end of my Friday, 3 o'clock, but I had a break, so I would go home, and then I would have to go, and I would be driving into the parking lot, and she would cancel. And it was always in it. My car broke down. It was like always something. Yeah. And so I looked back at her sessions, and I don't remember, this was so long ago, but let's just say out of 19, she canceled 16.
Yeah.
It was, like, absurd. And she paid.
Right.
But it was a fact that it was like, I couldn't plan anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't put any other person in that. And so I sent an email and I said, here's the dates of all your sessions that you canceled under 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to continue with me, you no longer get any cancellations last minute.
Yeah.
And she continued.
And you said she then stopped late canceling.
She stopped late canceling.
Yeah.
She never did it again. And then I had another teacher that had to sit down on a couch with a couple and say, have that difficult conversation of, if you want me to, you have to let me teach you. And if you can't let me teach you, I can't be your teacher.
I can't teach you. Yeah.
Because they were so combative with her.
And I think oftentimes it's just about notifying the client in some way to bring their attention to this, because sometimes it's not even on their radar that they're doing this.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember that as teachers, it's like, maybe they don't think it's important. Maybe they don't think it's a big deal. But we need to, in a nice way, set that boundary of, hey, if you want to work with me, this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And then leave it in their court.
Yeah, because then definitely just like that, like you're leaving it for them to make the decision. If you want to do this session, this is what needs to happen.
Yep.
And now it's up to them to decide.
Now it's up to you.
And that doesn't make us feel like the bad guy of saying, you can't come in anymore, you don't get this session.
I don't like you.
Yeah, don't come back, you don't get this session anymore. It's, I would like to work with you, but you're making it impossible because of this.
This needs to change.
Yeah.
In order for us to work together.
And I think being able to do that can also build confidence for teachers to be able to be strong and grounded. And it's not that it ever gets easier to do, but maybe we get more confidence in being able to do so.
Yeah, it's kind of like when they ask for the discount. It's like after so long you're able to say no. Yeah. But yeah, the difficult conversations, because again, there's a different conversation with every client in terms of what the issue is.
The specifics.
And the personality of the client is always different.
Yeah.
And, the client that's like very abrupt and very, whatever can be scary.
Yeah.
And then that you have the one that you think, oh, they're just going to burst out crying and I'm going to hurt their feelings. That can be hard. So it's like learning how to deal with all these different.
Yeah. And the specifics of exactly what to say and in what method to say it, like in person, phone call, text, email, whatever, that is, you can't tell anyone what to do. It's very specific for that teacher's personality and that client.
Yeah.
And how, we know our clients, even if we've only taught them a few times, you can tell how somebody acts and reacts.
Yeah. Are they quick to react? Are they kind of a laid-back personality? Are they,
Yeah, how will they handle something?
How will they handle stress or this or that? So, yeah, you kind of... So, yeah, I feel like it's like something you can't tell someone.
Yeah, you just need to be aware and connected to the client and your own needs.
Yeah, and your comfort level as well.
Yes, yeah.
Because if it's easier in an email, if it's easier on the phone, if it's easier in person.
There's nothing wrong with any of the choices. You can definitely do it in writing if that's easier.
Yeah. And I think, it really depends on the situation. Like this one, I wanted to make sure that I had all my ducks in a row. So everything was listed, the dates and my rules and my, the policies. So it was all in black and white.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I felt like in that situation, because this is another thing, think about if you're talking to someone and they're going to be that person that kind of throws you off track.
Yeah.
And then you don't get to say what you needed to say.
Totally. Yeah.
And then you leave going, oh,
I forgot to say this or that. Yeah. It's frustrating.
No, it's like, ah. But I think that we're always going to have these issues come up. And it's not that they're bad. We're not saying these are bad people, bad clients. Right. But everyone has a life outside of the studio. And we're kind of having to deal with this personality of the client and what they're bringing into the studio, their life, as well as our own life.
Yeah.
So we need to set boundaries for ourselves so that we can then be able to help that client.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. And if they don't want that, then they won't come back.
Yeah. And it's completely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll find, there's so many different teachers, so many personalities, so many different ones that have their own boundaries, right? Everyone has their own boundaries.
Yeah.
And
so there's, like we've said before, there's a right teacher for every client. There's the right client for every teacher, and not every client and teacher are going to get along. No. And that's okay. And it's okay. And we need to set our boundaries, have those conversations, take the time to figure out what's the right way is to approach these conversations. Yes.
And what's going on in their mind.
Yeah.
Because maybe you could just say, hey, I've noticed this has been going on. What is that about?
Yeah. It could be as simple as that. It does not have to be
It doesn't have to be a confrontation. Yeah. It can be, hey, I've been noticing this. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, wait, what?
Like, oh, yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a bad confrontation.
Yeah. And sometimes it can surprise you how easy it can be when, like, we'll build it up in our own minds. Yeah. And then it's actually like, oh,
that wasn't bad.
Oh, that was actually kind of nice. And now we worked through this thing.
Yay. Oh,
so
don't forget our sponsor.
We have a sponsor.
For the new year. She got to end the year. Now we're in the
starting
new year.
Our year.
So our sponsor is actually from an author, Charlotte Marsh, who's also a Pilates teacher.
Yep.
And it is Susie Sloth and her secret superpower, Pilates exercises and breathwork practices. And it's a children's book.
It's fantastic.
And we were saying this with the last episode, is who doesn't love a sloth?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
With all of her friends and these other animal friends.
But you'll meet Susie and her friends. It's got beautiful illustrations in it. And it incorporates breathing and movement. So you get to join Susie Sloth on this fun adventure. She makes new friends and learns valuable skills in life. It's a perfect way to introduce your child to Pilates and breathwork.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun activity book for the parent and the child. And you can get it on Amazon. It's getting great reviews already.
It is, yeah.
But it's also, like we were saying earlier, it's perfect for active children, Pilates teachers, breathwork coaches, families who want to teach their children the importance of compassion, self-care, mindfulness, and healthy movement habits. So who doesn't want that? With a sloth.
Yeah. Yeah, and illustrations are so cute and sweet.
So cute. It's a little unforgettable journey they go on. So it's on Amazon for sure. It came out in October, so it hasn't even been out that long, and it's already getting
lots of great reviews.
Lots of great reviews. So if you haven't, go check it out, order it. It's after Christmas. Oh, we should have put that in the other episode. After Christmas. But we'll have it on our notes, maybe a link to it so they can get it. But yeah, Susie Sloth. Check her out.
Check it out. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year 2024. We have so many great topics.
We're very excited for this year.
Excited. We have a huge list.
Yeah.
As always. And we'll probably keep adding on.
We'll keep adding.
But feel free again. Keep sending us feedback, comments, topics you might want to hear.
Questions you have.
Questions. Yeah, we love it. And that's it. That's our first episode of 2024.
Yay!
Yay! So enjoy the new year. It's full of potential.
Yes. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye. There goes our theme.